All right, Ike. I realize I say "all right, Ike" every. It's how we start the show. It's now like I'm going to get printed on T-shirts. I think maybe I'll get "all right, Ike" printed on a T-shirt.
I love it. It wakes me up. Yeah, totally.
With an Ike face on it. I think that would be great. So in the news this week, well, it's actually been in the news for a couple weeks now. I think they kind of announced it a little while back. But the new Defender, of which you're familiar, they're not making them, but if they were making them, I guess they plan to make them again in the future.
Spring 2022.
That's when they'll finally be back on track.
Theoretically,
the Exalted Special Vehicle Operations. I remember it when it was just special vehicles, but the SVO group is making
SVR.
They're making an SVR, which for those Jaguar owners understand that means R. For
racing.
Oh, is that what it meant?
No,
I thought it
probably
meant.
not.
I thought it meant for ridiculous.
It is ridiculous at 600 horsepower. It's creeping up there towards the ridiculous, sort of plaid.
It's the plaid edition. Well, I think
edition.
This now finally sounds like if you play soccer or football for our European fans for a living, if that's what you do for your job, you are required by British law, I believe, and perhaps FIFA rules to buy one of these cars. I think that is what it is designed specifically for that crowd.
If you're a corrupt FIFA official, this is the official car of that.
This is what you will use your embezzled money to buy, and you'll have to do a pretty reasonable amount of embezzling because it sounds like this guy's going to be about $125,000 US dollars, and that's the 90. The 110 only $5,000 more, $130,000, which
relative bargain.
When you think about it, the extra material that you get. I had a friend who would only buy like double or triple X clothing, even though he was maybe a large, because he thought the value of the larger thing was better.
This is true with pizza. If you calculate the surface area of a pizza, the larger size is always a better deal.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively. The like extra size difference is only like maybe $5 or $10, whatever, but you actually get, 50% more pizza.
Wow. Well, there you have it.
That's a pro tip. That's a pro tip.
There's a tip-top pizza tip. So in this case, if you want just slightly more, it's not slightly, it's a lot more. You want a lot more Defender for only slightly more money. You can invest now. But to be fair, if you're buying a 600 horsepower Defender, it's probably so that you can race people around your town or village, and so you'll probably want the 90 because it's a little bit lighter, right? It's going to have less material, so it'll be lighter. So it's sort of, you got to wonder, like, do you want the bargain of the more material in the 110 or the fast speediness of the less material in the 9? What an incredible problem to have to solve.
Only time will tell. Only time will tell.
And deal. So on this week's show, we're back with another guest. It's amazing. We found two people in the world that are willing to come on the show with us. So we've got Stuart from Wrench N Roverin coming up in a little bit. But before that, Ike, you have, and this stems from my long-standing issue of trying to get the steering wheel out of my Stage 1, which has decided that it has time and lack of lubrication welded itself into the car. I'm who knows, as we record these a little bit in the past, who knows, I may still be working on getting the steering wheel. At some point that steering wheel will come out. A Sawzall may be required.
Some say he's still at it.
You can hear late at night tapping away, swearing at a steering wheel in a vintage Land Rover. But before that, we were talking a little bit before the show, and you had a tip-top tool tip that may very well help with some other problems I have in that car with bolts being welded to the car, because you know what, if you don't have a friend who can hold the other side of a bolt for you, just weld it into the car.
Weld it in place. I don't see why that's a problem. That's the next person's problem. I didn't even use lock washers. I just weld all the nuts to the bolts.
It's fine. They're not going to back themselves out when they're welded together. Yeah, that's for sure. I'm not 100% sure this steering wheel isn't welded in there.
No safety wire, no lock washer. Saves money too. Just zap, 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 zap. Anyway, the tool you're referring to is a Dinafile. And the Dinafile is, it's in that tier of tools where it's not in everyone's basic assortment of tools, but it is a really handy thing if you're doing any amount of metalworking, body work, anytime you got to remove material from any material, really. It's an abrasive tool. It's basically a mini belt sander. It's a very small belt sander, and it has different sized wheels that go on either end. So you can use different sized belts all the way down to 1/8 of an inch. So you can really get it in some tight places, some corners. If you're finishing welds, you're metal finishing a surface. It's a really consistent, useful tool for doing that. And one of the things I like about the Dinafile is it's made by Dynabraid. And we don't have a deal with them yet, but so this is a non-paid endorsement. But Dinafile
but
is the
Dynabraid people are listing.
Dynabraid is the only U.S. air tool manufacturer remaining. All other air tools are made overseas.
I did not know that.
I like supporting them, and they make bitchin' stuff. They make really good abrasive tools in a variety of types. And the Dinafile I find to be one of the more versatile ones. In a Land Rover, if you're doing a lot of work that those vehicles require, a lot of rust repair, these sorts of things, using the Dinafile is amazing for, replacing footwells or cleaning out gutters or all kinds of various things. And like I said, the widths of the belts, vary a lot, and they even make ones that bend, so you can do radiuses. And the wheels that support the belts come in a variety of different sizes: narrow, wide, flat, rounded. So you can really get in some tight spots, really do a lot of metal finishing. It's a really great tool. But in your specific situation, it would be really useful because you could get into a tight area and kind of sand away the head of that bolt very easily and very quickly. Those are powerful tools. They're very consistent. Imagine being able to put your finger on something and just remove material. That's how easy it is. It's a really fine implement. Can really get it into some tight spots. And so for that reason, I think it's worthy of being this week's Top Tool Tip.
Very well said. Perfectly stated. Perfectly stated. Perhaps we'll shoot a Patreon video about the Dinafile.
Yeah.
And definitely we're going to shoot a Patreon video of Ike removing the steering wheel from stage one.
With the Dinafile.
With the Dinafile, yeah. Well, like I said, the steering wheel will come out. It's just, will either the steering box or the steering wheel be usable after they come out of the car? I have another steering box. I may need you to bring me down a steering wheel, but regardless, I will not be bested.
I believe in you. I believe in you.
And as you know, I have a menagerie of insane toolage, and it has all come out on this steering wheel. Some contraptions you could only imagine to get this steering wheel off, and I have yet been bested. So
I was talking to Steven on the phone when he was working on this, and it sounded like that scene from the Monty Python and the Holy Grail where they're building the large wooden badger. There was sawing and ratcheting and burning and all this stuff. So
yeah, it was. It certainly was a spirited morning. Came in early. Figured I'd have to have this car ready for an event on Sunday. It is now Monday. I figured, bagging this out, steering box replacement, not a big deal. Quick to do. Ike sent me a new one. I've got everything I need. This will be quick. And the best laid plans. First of all, welded bolts.
Welded bolts.
My morning started with, wait, is this welded in? To having to spend, I ran out of time trying to get the steering wheel out. But anyways, that will be bested. So again, back to our guest, Ike. Again, it is amazing to me that we've managed to convince not one, but two people to appear on this particular show, if that's what you want to call it. So Stuart is from the Wrench N Roverin channel on YouTube, which is great. I really like his stuff. I think he's got a great style. So let's what do you say? Let's boot up the. Are we booting it up? Are we revving it up? I'm not sure the machine, the podcast guest machine, but
it's like karaoke but different.
Oh, we're filling it full of very clean kerosene and hitting the go button. So without further ado, let's dial Stuart in here. All right. Our guest this afternoon, today, this evening, this morning, whenever you're listening to it, it really doesn't matter what time of day is it. Totally out of the frame of reference for this conversation. We have our good friend Stuart Barnes from Wrench N Roverin, a fantastic YouTube channel and everything. So, Stuart, welcome to the Underpowered Hour. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, absolutely. I have to say, I'm a big fan of the YouTube content. I don't own a vehicle as new as some of the cars that you work on, certainly the Range Rover Sport, and it's always fun to see how many fancy keyed metric fasteners and things like that there are under there, and not horribly corroded Whitworth fasteners from the 1950s. So it's a hope of a better future, which I appreciate.
Absolutely, it's just a matter of time, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They're going back to Whitworth standard because of the metric bolt shortage.
There's That's exactly right. Chips and metric bolts. So, you know what? Lots of Whitworth still laying around the fact they just actually swept up the floor and found enough to put together a few more cars. Thankfully, hopefully we're almost on the other side of the
no end in sight. No end in sight to the chip shortage.
Fair enough. Then Whitworth fasteners it is. We'll get those Range Rovers banged together with some Whitworth fasteners. It'll be just fine. So, Stuart, not to detract too much. So, something we ask all of the guests is, why Land Rover? Of all of the cars in the world that you had to pick, you picked the Land Rover. So why is that? What drew you to the brand?
Well, obviously not being from North America. You're from the UK. I mean, this stuff is literally in your blood. Mm-hmm. I was raised about 130 miles from where they had the estate where they developed the first Series 1 in
mm-hmm.
Anglesey.
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised in the countryside in Herefordshire. And all of my friends' families had them because they're all farmers. And you went from the really nice one, which was the latest series or Defender or whatever the model was at the time, to the really nasty mouldering one that's slowly returning back to nature, forming, a hedge at the end of the farmyard.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, and I think, having spent a very reasonable amount of time in the UK, I don't know that those folks over here realize that it is, it's the sort of Ford pickup truck a little bit of the UK to have a series or a Defender is sort of kicking around. Certainly not as novel as it is to see one here. It's sort of a bit like a unicorn driving down the street when you see someone cruising along here. But back in the UK, not such a novel thing.
No, there were so many of them on the road, especially when I was a kid. And every single town or village had at least one mechanic that could fix these things. Mm-hmm. And you were never more than, let's say, 12 or 24 hours from that spare part. Mm-hmm. Whether you're cannibalizing something else or getting something new old stock, as they say, or old stock.
Yeah, that's right. Already pre-rusted was an option for sure.
Yeah.
So far as Land Rovers, what Land Rovers have you had over the course of your long and illustrious career?
The latest one's a LR4 or Disco 4, as the rest of the planet call them. Before that, very, very close to buying several, normal Defenders. Had my eye on a Tomb Raider Defender for a long time, but priced out. Wish I'd taken the second mortgage and actually bought it now.
Yeah, that's right.
We did a show about the Tomb Raider.
Oh, I missed that one.
I have to check it out.
Sorry, guys.
No problem.
The one of Ike's favorite things is to add an excessive amount of checker plating to Land Rovers. It's high on his list, and the Tomb Raider Land Rover certainly.
Ropes that serve no purpose is another thing that I love.
Purposeless ropes and checker plating, and I'm sure if we looked hard enough, there's some truck bed liner on that thing as well.
Probably,
so,
absolutely. I mean, the ropes just to allow you to be a lousy parker. When you're parking the thing up on the street.
It's for mooring your Land Rover. They're just mooring ropes.
Well, I can say that, certainly my 80-inch, actually a mooring rope would be nice when parking on a hill, because the park brake is not really up to the job anymore. So we'll just tie it off to a fire hydrant or something, and it'd be fine.
Fine.
No.
Fine.
I like it. I think it's a great idea.
So
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead.
Land Rover repair. Why were you excited to transition your love of Land Rovers into a channel exploring Land Rover repair? You know, there's obviously the famous shirt sticker, etc. You know, Land Rover making mechanics out of owners since 1948. Is that how it transpired for you?
Sort of yes and no. I mean, when I came here and emigrated or immigrated, depending on which country you're sitting in, we needed an everything source SUV. And we went through the whole list, and I said to my wife, look, the kids want to go off-road. We need 7 seats when my family visits. So it really narrows the field down. Mm-hmm. And we definitely weren't going for a full-size truck. So I said, okay, well, you know, start looking Lexus and all the rest of it. And then the Land Rover came back because apart from like the heartstrings, it's probably the best looking of all of those vehicles in my taste. And it's in the eye of the beholder, right? Mm-hmm. So I got the hold of the vehicle, and it's that thing of the North America are perceived as being fragile, temperamental, blah, 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 luxury mall crawling, Whole Foods prowling, on super low profile tires, just everything that they're
So that's why you bought it?
Doing. Absolutely. That's it, man. That's it. Ike, you can read me perfectly well.
I'm teasing. No, tell us more.
So, we get this thing back. It's like any used car. You don't get it brand new. You have no idea what's been done to it in the first 5 or 6 years of its ownership. And, I was raised and I joined the Navy at a very young age. So I realize and appreciate preventative maintenance as well as, general upkeep. And you need to baseline a vehicle. I have no idea of the state of any of the fluids in these things, which parts have been used, have they been authorized parts, the whole thing. So it's like, okay, let's baseline this car. If I'm 150 miles out into Death Valley somewhere, I can't afford for this thing to fail. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line. And so it's like, okay, well, we'll start at the beginning, change all the fluids, change the things, little plastic parts that can grenade an engine in 2 minutes. And we'll go from there. And I'm just fortunate to have skill to actually do that, being a mechanic in the Navy.
How many things are there? How many little things are there that can grenade the engine in 2 minutes?
There's 2 crossover pipes, which it's a header pipe that goes back to your radiator. Mm-hmm. And then there's another one at the back of the block that goes through to your heater. Mm-hmm. And if any of those part, because it's a pressurized system, it's a modern car, they keep it as hot as possible for the thermal efficiency. If these things go, then that's it. Your low coolant light has a natural lag on it that's programmed in. So it isn't going on, off, sending you around the bend when it's just on the limit. And it's a little bit slow when all of your coolant turns to steam. And the coolant system's not that big on a modern car. They're not compared to an old one. You don't have 2 bottles where, it displaces into the second bottle and then sucks it back in when it cools down. Mm-hmm. You just don't have those systems now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. It's funny because I think, I feel like ever since, and we say this a lot, ever since the coil-sprung Land Rover has been invented, Land Rover is really working to maximize the thermal efficiency. That's a good way to talk about it. I would say it's just always on the razor's edge of overheating, but maybe thermal efficiency. I think we should start calling it thermal efficiency. It's certainly my Defender has plenty of thermal efficiency, more thermal efficiency than I would care to have, especially currently under the heat dome. It's not a particularly fun experience. But so being a mechanic in the Navy, let's talk about that a little bit, because I imagine, given the British military's sort of predisposition for awkward situations, what is you must have some amazing mechanics in the Navy stories around fixing things. Did you work on Land Rovers in the Navy, or did you work on submarines, or what exactly?
I'll just correct you there. It's not the military Navy. It's the merchant Navy.
Ah.
So the Royal Navy call the merchant Navy the wavy Navy. Because we sort of flake a little bit. Oh, it's it might kick off down there, so we're not going to go anywhere near that. just to clarify that, because certain guys in the Royal Navy will get a little bit upset.
Fair enough. Sounds like a much more eclectic Navy.
Yeah, it's run by villainous shipping tycoons that try to run everything on a shoestring budget. So same as a Land Rover owner, really.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. So what kind of situations do you find yourself in as a mechanic in the Merchant Navy?
You have to be able to fix everything, because in the middle of the Atlantic, you can't call AAA, can you?
That's right. So the kinds of so you would work on sort of marine engine stuff, or primarily, or what kind of things?
Yeah, but big diesel engines. I mean, 100,000 horsepower, 12-cylinder engines. Yeah, really big stuff.
Wow.
Stuff that's that big that if you're in the sea and it's rolling and the ship's moving, that if a conrod hits you, it will kill you.
Yeah, right. Wow.
So you have to be very careful.
Not a fun place to blow a head gasket, I imagine. That's
a head gasket's about 3/4 of an inch thick.
Wow.
So you don't tend to blow them. They just melt.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. And so that, sort of experience has informed the kind of, I have to say, like, the channel is very informative. Like, I like the way that you sort of talk through the job. I have to imagine getting some of the angles, getting cameras into some of the spots that, because, my personal, I'll go on a tangent for a moment. My personal pet peeve with most YouTubers is the the constant repositioning of a phone or something into an even worse spot than it was in before, so you can see even less of what's going on. There's no lighting. There's, you're trying to figure, out what's going on, and it's a total disaster. And you do such a great job of, first of all, actually being able to see what you're working on, and then spending the time to sort of get the camera in the right place, and then cutting that stuff together in a way that I'm not constantly watching you reposition your camera into worse spaces. But I've got to imagine that under the car and getting, we don't do a lot of that kind of shooting. We're much more stationary setup in our sort of studio thing. So it's very envious to be able to get in there and get such good shots. How much time do you spend sort of putting a video together?
To shoot it probably is about 3 times the amount of time that you would use doing the job. Obviously, you have to do retakes and everything when you say the wrong thing and call a left-hand thread a right-hand thread and vice versa. But the main thing is that if I struggle to see what I'm looking at while I'm doing it, then that means the camera's in the right place.
Right.
And that's pretty much my litmus test, is like, if it makes it hard for me, then okay, this might work.
Right. Oh, that's fun. Yeah. It's a completely different, sort of like how a modern concert going audience is when people did that, now pretty much watch the concert through their iPhone that they're holding up overhead to see what's going on stage. Now, what I want to know is who's watching that? Like, who are they? Are they taking it home and like, here's a blown out Bon Jovi concert that you can't hear or see? Isn't this great?
I'll tell you who's watching it. It's the guy 3 seats behind that can't see anything.
They can't see anything because there's just a sea of phones in front. Yeah, no, exactly. No, but I appreciate not just being able to see it, but very thoughtful commentary, calling out the tools that you're using, what sizes they are, because often, I certainly do. If I'm going to go, I don't know, fix my dishwasher or something, which is still broken. It is not fixed. But, having someone call out like, oh, you're going to need this spanner, you're going to need this size socket, you're going to need this screwdriver, whatever, because I'm watching the video, hopefully, before I've done that. So you can sort of collect those things. You can have them with you. You can not sort of be like, oh, now I'm going to use a wrench to take this apart. Well, what wrench? What do you do? It's sort of, I think that really adds to it. It makes it much easier to kind of follow along and sort of prep, which I think was what a lot of people do now, is prep by watching the YouTube video or a selection of YouTube videos and then go out and give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it comes back to the training that I had in the Merchant Navy, where you had a book, just say for the main engine, which, 80,000 horsepower, and it would have, it's a very pictorial. So it would have a picture of 3.5 guys and an 8 next to it. And you knew that it took 3.5 people 8 hours to typically do this job.
I see. And that one half guy was left over from a conrod hitting him during particularly high seas. There's no lower half anymore.
Absolutely. And, and he only got hit by the comrade after he'd made the tea and brought the biscuits.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, poor guy. That's too bad. But he's, that's all right. He's still in there. You need that half guy. You can't otherwise. He's the only guy that fits. So I'm going to lower the half guy in there.
That's it. There's some very small spaces on ships.
So in addition to fixing Land Rovers, it sounds like you're using your Land Rovers, you're taking them places. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we try and get out every second weekend. I'm in, obviously, the Southern California Land Rover Club, and I've met a few other guys online with the various fora that I'm part of. And we just said, hey, let's go out and wheeling, as you call it in America. We call it off-roading or green.
I don't care for that term. Yeah, Canadians call it off-roading as well. It's wheeling is a very American thing. I don't know what is with you. Well, I guess I am.
In Indiana, where I'm from, we just call it driving.
Driving, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I can't even say wheeling properly.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I prefer off-roading. Green laning is another. I like that term. There's no such thing really here as green lanes, but we have something similar in Canada. They won't call them green lanes, but they are forestry service roads, and sort of the same kind of idea where they're public land, and you can sort of choose at your own peril to take what looks like a shortcut on your map, but may actually be composed of 16 inches of the sloppiest of mud. Which here in Southern California, of course, we have no mud because mud requires water, and that doesn't exist here anymore. But I remember
it rained last night here.
I've been told throughout the day here that it is raining, and because I'm in my hermetically sealed box here, I haven't heard it. But yeah, thank goodness, because man, it's a little bit cooler here today, Ike. It's only 85 degrees or something, but don't worry. By the time you get here, back to the heat dome, 110 degrees or whatever. So.
Not looking forward to that.
No, it's going to be great. It's going to be so good. Thank goodness there's a big British car meet out in the middle of a park with very few trees. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I'm going to dig a hole and just climb in it. Maybe lay underneath one of the rovers. It'll be great. Nice cooling oil.
So when you take your trips in your Land Rover, what Land Rover are you using? LR4?
Yeah, LR4. Discovery 4, yeah.
And you do
I refuse to call it the LR4. It was a branding mistake. I refuse to subscribe to the LR4.
You know why they did that? You know why they did that? They did that because the Discovery had such a bad reputation in the North American market. Every time you Googled like a Discovery, it would come up with lots of negative reviews and whatnot.
Blown head gaskets and timing chain issues.
Blown head gaskets and timing chain issues from Discovery 2s, probably.
Yeah.
And so they decided that they were going to depart from the Discovery name and name them the LR series, so LR2, 3, 4, whatever. So that is the reasoning. So I'm told. Why.
Obviously, it's back now. Because
people forgot. People forgot.
That's it.
Google it timed out of Google. It's like a speeding ticket, like 7 years, and then it's off your record. So
you forget about it.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Forget about it. So you take the trips in your LR4, and these are usually overnight or week-long trips, or
I've got a 5-year-old boy, so the overnighter at the moment, he's scared about staying in a tent. Poor soul. So I'm trying to coerce him to go in the backyard, but he's still not happy. There's vicious possums around.
Have you tried zip tying the two zippers together and just going and watching a movie or something?
Yes.
Well, as any parent can tell you, yeah, of course, absolutely.
But I will never admit it in public.
Too late.
My daughter and I once went camping in the back of our Discovery 5, and I've been camping in the back of my Land Rovers. I don't usually take a tent because I'll fashion something on the side of the Defender or inside of one of the bigger cars, and it was the first time I'd taken sort of a modern car, to be fair, and slept in it camping. And like in the middle of the night, I woke up, and of course the windows are all fogged and everything, which I wasn't used to, and like I was like, I think there's very little air in here. Like I need to open a door. Of course, previously I've had no problem with airflow through a totally closed and locked Land Rover. There's plenty of airflow even with all that.
Well ventilated.
Yeah, it was very well. The windows would not fog up because like there was always a breeze going through it, no matter what was closed or opened or whatever. It's sort of irrelevant. But it's a and actually, she loved the sleeping in the truck itself. It was a very novel sort of thing, and because the new cars are sort of so sealed up and safe and stuff. Although I would probably crack a window, knowing now that good thing we didn't suffocate. I don't think it's possible to totally suffocate, but certainly a bit lightheaded. But it was a lot of fun. She really enjoyed it. She had a great time.
I'll try and persuade him to do that then. I'll give it a shot. Because the seat's it's a totally flat bed inside once you fold everything down, which is, again, unusual on modern vehicles.
Totally.
I can totally lay down in a Discovery 5, which is at 6'1" is a pretty tall order. Like you don't, my Defender, I just string my hammock from the tire carrier to the front bumper and lay against the side of the car, and that works fine. Or in the 109, it's fine. In my, the 109's flip up seats, as long as it doesn't have a bench seat in the rear. I had a bench seat one, couldn't do that, but the flip up, the tri flip seats.
I just roll up in a tarp and then inchworm under the car.
Yeah. Burrow under just a tiny amount of dirt, and they're just and like a possum, like an angry possum. You startle Ike at night. It's sort of a very visceral response.
As long as you take your shovel so you can dig yourself out in the morning, right?
No, see, that's a misnomer. When you go camping, you always have to take 2 shovels, because if you only bring one, you dig alone.
Never dig alone.
That's a pro tip.
Remember that one, definitely.
2 shovels.
Never dig alone. So what, Stuart, if you don't mind, what if you had to, you go through your top 5 craziest repairs, as we always like to get a story out of people. What's the craziest thing you've had to repair? Maybe the craziest place you've had to repair something?
Oh my gosh. The most perilous is definitely has to be the main engine broke down. We were on a ship going from, oh my gosh, I think Cartagena in Spain over to Port Cartier up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And we were dodging hurricanes. It was the wrong time of year. The sea's foul. I mean, you got 30-foot waves and all the rest of it. And the main engine breaks down. So at which point you only have one engine to make you go. It's like a car. And you've got to fix it. So this ship, it was just rolling like crazy. I have to take out the piston. I mean, the Comrod's 10 feet long.
Yeah.
And the piston's several tons. So you're using 2 cranes, big gantry cranes, to get these things out. And doing that job was, the pucker factor was really up there. Definitely. It was a 9 out of 10, I would say.
And this is on a commercial vessel, so you probably have people who are like, finish it, hurry.
Yeah. And the company on the, oh my gosh, it would be radio telephone. It was before satellite comms were far too expensive, going, why aren't you going fast enough? We're going to miss the contract date. It's going to cost more fuel to speed up, and 12 knots instead of 10 3/4, and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
So the thumb screws are on.
I have a friend that's a merchant marine, and that's the way he describes it. He's like, most of the time it's completely boring, and then 10% of the time it's like bananas. It's crazy. Everybody's running everywhere, trying to fix everything in a hurry. It's everybody's losing money, and it's an emergency. It's bad.
That's exactly right, and it teaches you the very finely honed skill of having the right spare part very close at hand, or being able to make one out of junk.
Right. Because I imagine you don't just pop down to the Pep Boys to get a conrod for a 10-foot long conrod for the engine of a giant seafaring vessel. That's
no, you don't. But you do keep spares. You keep spare cylinder liners, spare cylinder head, exhaust valves. They're all modular.
Man, I can only imagine changing a cylinder liner on an engine. Like, how large is a piston on an engine that size?
The largest stuff I worked on, they were, 980 mil. So we're looking at basically almost 3 feet.
Yeah, holy crow. Yeah. That is a giant. Wow. It makes the Series 1, the 1.6 liter pistons look even that much smaller.
Well, it's a baby stone crusher, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's exactly right. All right. So, Stuart, what do you have coming up on the channel? What are some things that you're working on? What are some things that people should look out for coming from you?
I've just done the aforementioned crossover pipes and found the ones on my car to be about to explode. So I saved myself a very expensive repair.
Very fortunate.
And I'm finding that the editing of that video is insanely long, because I sort of digress into, this is how you do a supercharger inspection, and put the endoscope down, and this is what gears should look like when they're good. I have a couple of little whoopsies where one of the springs disappeared down an inlet valve, and I'm like, oh no, please don't go down in there. And it was the only one that was open, and it just hung up, and I'm like, but the Whitworth gods are on my side.
That's right. Well, it's always one of those things, right? That if you have, the topper of a carburetor or something uncovered and something flies off, it will land in there somehow. It's like there's a gravitational pull of areas of your engine that do not want foreign things.
Tiny wormhole just jumps right in there.
It sucks it in.
One of my really clever friends, he does AI and all the rest of it over in Europe, and he said, it's just a matter of quantum physics. This thing will always attract to what you don't want it to when it's time critical.
That's exactly right. Yes, as the famous adage goes, a 15-minute job is always one bolt away from being a 5-hour or 2-week-long job. Or in my case, as I've just found on taking, I have the passenger driver's side wing off of my Stage 1 right now. Someone decided to weld some bolts in because I guess if you don't have a friend that can, or you're not dexterous enough to hold a wrench on the other side of that bolt, just weld it to the car. I'm sure it will be fine. That won't.
That's for the next guy to figure out.
For the next guy, yeah,
it's for the next guy.
I have one question: has it drawn blood yet?
Now, no question. I had to take the wing off, so everything under there is serrated. And you have to just jam. You just keep pushing until you get to the other side of that bolt, and your hands come out as a mangled. Somebody actually commented on some of our Patreon videos. They said, "You've got a lot of cuts on your hand." I said, "Well, I was doing a Patreon video you haven't seen yet, and that yielded those cuts." Safety wire we were doing. I was doing a safety wire
the
demo.
dog trainer with all the scars on his arms. You're like, I'm not sure I should trust that guy.
The gentleman who does the Alexio, who does the shooting with me, he's operating the second camera as I'm spraying blood from jabbing myself with some sharp safety wire, and I hadn't really noticed yet. And so there's just, anyways, it's good. Stay tuned for that on Patreon. It's a whole different kind of channel, a whole different kind of thing.
Are you wearing a patch with your blood group on your chest?
Yeah, I should. It should. It's a good idea. Certainly, I have a tetanus shot more often than people who don't own Land Rovers. That is for certain. So, Stuart, let's talk a little bit. Where can, as we wrap up here, find your stuff? It is Wrench N Roverin on YouTube, yes. And what's the frequency of videos, and where do people find it?
I'm trying to get it so I'm dropping one every week. Obviously, it is quite difficult because I'm doing it on my own vehicle. It's not a pet project on the side. So it's, it gets taken out of daily use on the school run and going to the grocery store and airport runs for family and all the rest of it. So I tend to, I suppose, block shoot it when, as I said, you just change the crossover pipe. So that, I think, is going to be a 10-part series.
Wow.
Fantastic.
But it's the one that everyone's like, oh my gosh, this crossover thing, I am terrified. I don't want to pay a dealer $3,000 for this.
Right.
Intimidating, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
So I'm doing that one. I'm breaking it down of this is how you change your water pump. This is how you take off your belts, in bite-sized chunks of 15-minute videos.
Fantastic. There's nothing I can't stand more than a 2.5 hour long meandering video. That's always particularly difficult.
There's lots of meandering. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But a concise amount of meandering, bite-sized chunks is great. I think that's no. And like I said, I'm a big fan. I really I don't have any of the cars that you work on, but I do enjoy looking at modern fasteners enviously, and things you can take out with an Allen, like using an Allen head. Anything is just remarkable, just
amazing,
fantastic. Yeah,
amazing.
I'll do work on my BMW motorcycle, and it's all those little starred Torx things. It's just gorgeous,
Don't get caught out by the triple square socket. Because that guy, you're like, why is this Torx not working? Because it's not a Torx.
Not a Torx.
It's like, guys, come on. You're really making it difficult on an undershield, 3 different size bolts.
I did watch that episode with the undershield where there's why are they all different? It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, it makes sense when you understand the context of the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's to stop silly people taking it off by mistake.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah, I accidentally took off my undershield. Whoops.
It's there's always somebody who drives around in low range for a couple days before they finally call the dealer and ask why this car is so slow. So, they're out there. They're out there. All right, Stuart. Well, again, people can find you on YouTube at Wrench N Roverin. Do you do the Instagram? Do you do the Facebook? Do you do the MySpace? Are you at local flea markets? Where else can people find you?
I'm always at a local flea market looking for cheap spare parts. Didn't realize MySpace still existed. I thought, my gosh, you're showing your age there. I'm trying to get the Instagram thing going, but it's a slightly different derivative of the whole social media thing, which I prefer more of the dynamic flow of the videos. And I'm terrible at getting the photo.
Yeah.
So, which that isn't really, I'll get some, but.
They do have videos. They do have videos on the Instagram.
Videos.
Yeah.
I just did a series of seat cleaning videos that are, my mom liked it.
How about headlining cleaning?
Oh, no, never. Just don't do it. Just
can't clean it. Can't clean it. Just comes right off.
Don't look up. Don't look up. Just do it. All right. Well, Stuart, it has been an absolute pleasure. We absolutely appreciate it. And come on the show again, hey, and talk about what new things you've discovered that have nearly bricked your engine, and what other merchant marine projects have nearly cut a man in half. Always happy to chat about.
Absolutely. I'd love to come on anytime. And there's a couple of pet projects that I'm sort of working on, given enough space that I'll hopefully be rolling out.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right.
Can't wait to see him.
Stuart, thank you again. We appreciate it. And looking forward to the next time we chat. Stay well in the interim.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Well, I realize now that we forgot to ask Stuart if he's ever bought a Land Rover outside of a liquor store, but he does have. I mean, man, I can only imagine working on those giant engines. On I like I said, it's a hassle for me to get a steering wheel out of a car. I can't imagine trying to change a piston that is 3.5 feet tall.
Maybe the problem is that you don't have a crane in your workshop to pull the steering wheel off.
That is the problem. I do have a crane, but the problem is I don't have a crane. He had 2 cranes.
He said he had 2 cranes.
I only have 1 crane. That's the problem.
Maybe you need 2 cranes.
I'll go get another crane.
2 cranes, by the way, my favorite rap artist.
Oh, absolutely. 2 cranes. 2 cranes, Shakur. The early stuff was just transformative, really set a standard for the art form. Ike, we have one final parting gift, if you will, curse, penalty, whatever. It's not another T-shirt. It's in fact a book club installment, and this is a book I haven't read, so I'm always interested on your Land Rover book recommendations. So, what is this week's Land Rover Book Club?
This week's Land Rover Book Club edition is the 100 Days of Darien by Russell Braddon.
Not by Russell Brand.
That's correct. It might be more entertaining with Russell Brand, but less informative. But in either event, this is a good read. This is legitimately a good read if you like expedition narratives. This is a good one. It basically follows the 1970 Range Rover expedition through the Darien Gap, and follows those 2 vehicles. And of course, my favorite Land Rover, one of my favorite Land Rovers of all time, Pathfinder, the Series 2A, late 2A, 88 that drug the Range Rovers through the Darien Gap. It also features one of my friends, Jeremy Ainsworth, who was on the expedition and whose winch and wheels were used in the effort to bring the Range Rovers through. But this is kind of one of those, one of the last classic, like military supported expeditions that Land Rover participated in, where you just throw a bunch of mules and planes and supplies and, people at a problem and, overcome it by brute force. And so it's interesting from a logistical perspective, what the lengths that they go through to make this happen, fuel drops and supplies and all this stuff. And of course, all the problems that go along with that, people getting bit by snakes and, succumbing to foot rot and, all of these various problems that they encounter throughout the expedition. But it's a solid narrative. And for those of you that like, these exploratory type books, it's a classic. It really is. And, I think it's worth reading for sure.
And I know that the previous expedition before that was a Jeep, right? It was like a CJ something or other. And it took them like 4 years or something to get the same. So like 100 days is like humongous, like such progress. And realize the Darien Gap is about what, 400 or 500 kilometers, right? It's not particularly wide. But it is like the most densely populated or densely jungled area in the world.
Yeah, it's really about the water and the ditches and the crossings and these sorts of things. And there's debate, I mean, in Darien Gap circles about, what counts as a crossing. Can you kind of go a little sideways, and this person goes a different route. And so some people say that other people didn't do it the official route or whatever. Right. And this was supposedly like the straightest, hardest, way to go. But the original, I think, successful expedition was a Series 2, 88, and a Willys pickup. Oh, okay, and that was featured in like 1960 edition of National Geographic, if I'm not mistaken. And that car is called La Cucaracha Caracina, and the affectionate cockroach, I believe, is what it's referred to as. And then this expedition was the next big one. And then in the 80s, a guy named Mark Smith, whose Land Rover I now own, did a trip with like, I want to say 8 CJ 5s or 7s and like a bunch of his buddies, and they had like ladders on the top and stuff like that. And that one's really cool because it wasn't like a huge high budget expedition. I mean, they definitely had some support from sponsors and these sorts of things, but it's basically like 9 or 10 guys in Jeeps, and they drive like the whole Pan American Highway, and they cross the Darien Gap, and that one is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I know that Ewan McGregor just recently did another motorcycling, series for. I think it's on Netflix. I'm not sure. No, it was on Apple. It's an Apple show now. They've moved that thing over to Apple, and they went around because they were concerned about the FARC going through, and they're like, you can't take Obi-Wan Kenobi through there because he's going to get kidnapped. Oh, he's going to get FARCed all day long. Yeah. There's no question. And so they actually had to. I think they might have taken a ferry, which is, I think, also the route that they're now proposing for the Pan American Highway, to be able to essentially go by a leg of ferry or potentially some bridges or something, and they're just going to abandon going overland through the Darien Gap because it's too hard. And I guess foot and mouth disease from cattle coming from South America up into Panama, they don't want, or rather into South America through Panama, they don't want that to happen. They don't want
understandably
cows to be able to go along the road. I guess that's one of the biggest. Reasons that the farmers' lobby doesn't want it to happen. So
sure.
So maybe they'll solve it. Maybe they'll solve it with a ferry. So at any rate, Ike, it's been another a wonderful episode. Again, we're now 2 guests down. To the best of my knowledge, Frank is still alive. No one has died. We're doing this with the utmost safety in mind, and hopefully everybody is enjoying it. We've got brand new Patreon content coming up through the whole summer. Look forward to my mousing wire episode where I puncture my hands no less than 6 or 7 times. So it's always fun. You can tell where we are in the video by how much blood I have lost all over my welding table. So that's good. So pop in there. We have, of course, some wonderful Patreon supporters, the Australian contingent that is. So we have strong Patreon support from Australia.
Really appreciate that.
Let's see the United States show up and support a little bit as well. Come on, it's maybe Canada.
New Zealand. Don't let those Australians get ahead of you.
Come on, New Zealand. Where is New Zealand in our Patreon account? And again, we're working on another contest coming up, hopefully sometime in the future after our wildly successful, I think is the only way to say it, t-shirt giveaway on Instagram. And thanks for everybody who participated in that. And hopefully you'll be receiving your shirts shortly. Ike has worn about 50% of them so far. So we're working our way through. Some of the smalls were a challenge, but you know what? I appreciate your attention to detail and commitment to getting freshly sweated shirts out to
every small shirt. Will include a photograph of me wearing it.
That's fantastic. Like it or not, that's what you're getting. So, all right, Ike. Well, it's been a slice again. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Stephen, take care. I'm looking forward to it.